Because it's time for unlimited men-at-arms. That's right. That's the only way you play this, guys. I'm calling it now. Whoever stops pushing men-at-arms first loses.
I don't think it's that simple, but I can definitely see that being a thing. I think it could really come down to whether or not the players are sharing pawns.
Explain yourself further, Lidakor. I'm the play-by-play. I get to make these dumb statements. You must
I just
now
did that in a
dissect all
pregame,
this.
come on. But yeah, the point is that if the players are sharing pawns, you could possibly try rushing Feudal Age, slow down the opponent's push towards your dock, especially if your opponent is hesitant to dive in and fight your man-at-arms and then try to burn down your dock. You could get good value from Feudal Age because you can possibly rush a galley out and then shut down the opponent's fishing eco, possibly even prevent the man-at-arms from burning down your dock. But if each player controls his own pond, you will also need to drop a dock on the opponent's pawn to threaten it first, and you won't be able to do that if the opponent has the better man-at-arms numbers. So I think it's going to come down to whoever is sharing pond, or whether or not they're sharing pond.
They don't care for this analysis. It's going a different way. You're seeing this, right? Zern hasn't gone for racks, and also this is doubly damaging because of what Magic's done. He went for a second scout to strip away land eco. Zern seems to be intending to just play land eco and ignore docks until feudal. But this does mean he's going to have very finite resources because Magic should get double the amount of sheep off the map.
I love this. I love this a lot. Think about it this way. When you play the English Man-at-Arms build, that is a blind build. You have to start doing it the moment that you can afford the barracks and start popping out Man-at-Arms, which is essentially like at the 30 seconds mark. That is way before you have scout the enemy base. By the time you scout the opponent's base, you already have the barracks up. So it's too late to deviate from that. You're going into those man-at-arms blindly, and that's something that ZertoN is exploiting. He decided not to go for a single man-at-arms, that he's just gonna rush feudal.
Yeah, we'll see if it pays off. That will give him access to longbows, which is cool actually, because if Magic now does go onto the docks, he sets up fishing boats, they might be exposed to longbow fire. Also, you get enough longbows, these MAA don't actually last that long, so we'll see what Magic does. It looks like he stopped at 1. I actually prefer this. I think it means he can get the docks now. And sure, his feudal time might be slower, but the question mark is whether ZertoN can apply enough pressure with a quicker feudal timing.
Yeah, Magic realized that his opponent isn't going for barracks, so there is not much point in adding additional man-at-arms. He can use that to harass the gold mine, but that's all he can accomplish. Love the detail from ZertoN, by the way, to go heavy on the gold at the beginning, just to make sure he's going to have sufficient by the time the first man-at-arms arrives.
Because that's an interesting detail, right? You can actually go in the MAA. Admittedly, I think it's less popular to go into the base with the men-at-arms in the mirror, right? Because the English villages can defend with short bows. The damage is pretty bad, but it means that compared to other civs, you can't just trade efficiently. You're being hit before you even start clashing.
Yep, exactly. That one man-at-arms, apparently failing to find a reason to live. He's just gonna roam the map here, possibly trying to intercept the villager that's moving out to build a dock, but ZertoN has no desire to leave his base. He knows fully well that this man-at-arms is roaming the map, and for now, he's just gonna stay back at home now. He is gonna have to find a new source of food, because he only managed to get 3 sheep under his town center. Most of the sheep on the map were taken by Magic.
Exactly. That was my concern. Like, ZertoN, I like this idea. I think it would have been better with a second scout, though. Like, a second scout maybe slows down your feudal time by an extra, like, 20 seconds. But you at least have the food to get an army together at the beginning. Instead, it does feel like he's on the clock. Compare that to Magic. You know, he can go docks, and he will go docks. But realistically, he didn't need to go docks because he's probably got about 15, 16 sheep at least.
And you can see the effect of that second scout being added by Magic, which is not something that you see every day from the English nowadays. Yet, this time around, he was able to secure most of the sheep, and that is kind of forcing the hand of ZertoN, forcing him to move out to this very much exposed deer patch.
Someone I am surprised by, at first I thought ZertoN was going to go for a dock drop because his timing is so good. Like, he could have got a galley out and killed off any eco that Magic was starting to set up. But instead, he's just going to settle for the deer. Keep in mind, though, that it's not a far reach to now go for a dock yourself. And although Magic won't run out of food if you take the docks away, you can then leverage it yourself, and all of a sudden you don't have to expose yourself on these deers anymore.
And also do keep in mind that the first time that you can build an economy advantage over your opponent is when you have a dock going and when you add fishing ships. And this is a mirror matchup. You're looking at small differences, small advantages or disadvantages, and being able to fish, giving you 1 or 2 extra workers, is a difference maker in a mirror like this.
Now, that's why people tend to tunnel vision the fishing, right? Like, it's so good when you got the deep water fish gathering 1 food a second, which is higher than anything else in the game by default. Of course, by doing it, you do slow down your tech up timing, and Magic understands the importance of these timings. Look how many villages you just invested. You don't see this often out of the English for their feudal. I think that was 7 or 8 villages building up.
Yeah, he needs to rush this up. He needs a galley out here to protect his fishing eco with. And this is going to be scouted by ZertoN. ZertoN knows fully well that Magic is going to be slow to feudal age over here. And this is a weakness that could be exploited. You see, the gold mine has already been harassed, and that's a bigger problem for Magic than I initially thought. Look at his gold bank. He doesn't have gold to fill the galley with.
No. Honestly, I think in Magic's current situation, tech up and then drop a stables. I think actually Horsemen might be the way, especially considering ZertoN, until he gets the fishing fleet online, has to be out on those deer in the middle of no man's land.
And that's scouted by Magic. That's the big factor. He knows fully well that ZertoN needs the deer. So if you go stables here, you're going to have a good raiding potential. Let's see if he's going to go for that.
It would be so free in this game as well, because the cool thing Magic done there, he aggroed the ZertoN scout into the TC. It's dead.
Yep.
ZertoN has blind vision right now. He doesn't see anything on the map. So if you switch into Horsemen and you raid round on the left flank, you can get on top of the deer, and ZertoN's army is completely out of position to defend that.
Yeah, for sure. That is a great opportunity for Magic. ZertoN won't even realize that there's a Horseman switch going on until he actually sees the Horsemen slaying his villagers. And also, it's an open map with ZertoN having a slow-moving army and no vision. Or as I'm saying no vision, he's gonna add a scout here. Love that detail.
Oh, yes.
He really needs to know what Magic is up to.
It's so important when you run longbows, right? Because you need the biggest heads up you can get, as the longbow move at 1.12 movement speed, which is amongst the slowest for military units outside of siege. So this has always been the issue with English players. I think one of the biggest pains for them is more so probably than any other civ. When they lose a scout, they have to replace it. If they're in on feudal aggression, you have to replace the lost scout.
Indeed, that's gonna cost you a villager, of course, because you have to use your town center to do so, but this is why you need the scout, KP. You can't just afford to run up and then possibly bump into a bunch of longbows. Beautiful damage on the retreating forces. 3 longbows picked off.
That's actually huge right there. And also the man-at-arms, he manages to intercept the villager building up on the other dock. So sure, you've got a galley on the east side, but I'm pretty sure now Magic's just going to play west side for docks. And now with a longbow advantage push into the mid-map. This is a pretty cool move by Magic. Maybe the Horsemen could have had bigger kind of wallop directly into the eco, but this is more cost efficient.
It gets worse than that for ZertoN. He's down to 3 longbows. All of his stragglers get picked off one by one, and that dock on the left side is not yet complete. Villager might actually even be picked off here by the longbows. Dock will likely complete, but this villager might be probably dead.
Nah. I don't think he gets it.
No, it's not even competing.
It's longbows. Exactly, it's longbows. Short bows maybe, but longbows, whoop! See ya, sucker. No chance. Pipped at the post with less than 50 HP to build.
And talk about small differences in mirrors. This could easily be a game breaker for ZertoN now, because now his hunt is exposed. He's down to 6 longbows as opposed to 12, and he's not gonna have control over the left-hand side pond either.
Yeah, and just look at the longbow count. I mean, you have to double down. ZertoN, I think, actually ended up going double galley on the eastern side. That's a heavy investment, and now he gets spotted out in the deer as well. He can at least start setting up fishing to recover him, but right now, the problem for him is most of his food has to go into additional longbows. He can't play from behind in this matchup.
It gets worse than that. Most of his wood has to go into longbows too, so he can't really afford a lot of fishing ships here, although, if Magic is taking fights like this, it's gonna get better for ZertoN.
Is that a fight? That's like when the scrawny kid gets beaten up by the child 3 times his size. I don't think it's fair to even call that a fight anymore. They just ran by and 2 of the comrados went down. So he at least recovers it. And in fairness to him, Magic still has double the longbow despite the whoopsie daisy.
And ZertoN gets the dock up as well. Villager is gonna have to sacrifice himself for that, but dock goes up. Critical detail out there, so at least ZertoN can contest the left-hand side pond. IamMagic is not gonna have untouched fishing eco there, but do keep in mind, Magic is more than happy with this, because he doesn't have to rely on fish or hunt or even berries for himself. He's got the sheep to work with, unlike ZertoN.
And if your longbow army gets cleaned up, Magic still has additional value. It's not just about pressing your base. He can reach into these ponds and snipe galleys. Look at this. The galley's sitting in the corner. Longbows can attack it for free. He's not going to bother right now because the count is too small to outdo the healing. But this is going to continue to snowball, right? You can see what's happening here. It's now 15 lombos. Wouldn't be surprised if by 30 minutes in, Magic's floating 22 to 25 total.
Yeah, look at that. ZertoN now, his woodlines are in danger, and if you look at the forest spawns for him, most of them are on the front. He needs to defend these to be able to afford the galleys or the longbows himself, but it might be difficult to do so because he's heavily outnumbered on the land right now.
Now, Magic did get a little bit ambitious there. This might be the type of situation where you could actually go for a ram. It feels a little bit greedy, which is weird to say of early siege engineering, but in this matchup, it does feel greedy, right? But if he was to do that, ZertoN has no options left. He'll lose both the docks. He'll also lose his woodlines.
And look at the eco difference now. It's already 8 in the favor of IamMagic, and we didn't even talk about all the idle time that ZertoN is suffering from. His villagers are running for their lives, and they just can't seem to find a safe spot to work at.
And that idle time is compounded, Lidakor, because what did ZertoN not have last game that hurt me?
Wheelbarrow.
Now, it's fairer in this one, right? You wouldn't expect a rush wheelbarrow. That's such a big difference. But because it's not there, the aggressive player gets more value, even with slow-moving units like Lombos. And that's why I at least love this detail of ZertoN. He's now trying to trade in the base of Magic.
Oh, that's good value out there. Unnoticed by IamMagic. In fact, what is he doing?
Wait, oh my, I don't think he realized that he didn't have enough to one-hit the villagers. So he was kind of trying to optimize, but he big-brained himself. Whoops.
Value is still decent.
But is it enough? Look at the eco situation. There's a 7-point lead for Magic still. No.
It's not enough at all. Especially because the right-hand side pawn now is going to be taken by Magic. He has had the better eco. He was able to leverage that for more boats. Same thing on the left side. Is that a transport ship? Hold the phone. Do I see a transport?
Yes. Wait, what? For what, though?
Yeah,
I think
that's why I'm surprised, KP.
Wait, no, it's big. Okay, no, hear me out. In the panic and the anarchy, right, you're like not quite looking clearly. ZertoN right now sees that there's 3 galleys there, so he can't compete. So he won't invest another galley there. Transport ships are cheaper than galleys.
True that, and you do have to keep in mind that it's also good to soak up arrow fire. When there is fights happening all across the map, you don't have the time to individually micro your units. So it could be easily useful to just soak up a lot of arrow fire out there. This time around, though, the longbows are the ones soaking up the arrow fire thanks to the galleys.
ZertoN just got the longbow lead. However, it is going to cost him the galleys in response. He needs to be careful not to get too close to the shore himself. In fact, he's being baited in a little bit here. Galleys are beginning to peel back, and it does feel like Magic, although he slipped up on land a little bit, he slipped up because his feet were so wet from getting control of all the water.
Yeah, longbow number is evening out right now. At least ZertoN has some level of presence on the right-hand side pawn. The concern for him is that that by itself is insufficient. He needs the food much more than IamMagic does, and that's something that Magic is conscious about.
Now, all I'm going to say of this transpo ship, my final thoughts on it, it makes sense if at the end of the game, Magic just all chat types, I'm going to transport you to another loss. Then I'm okay with it.
But Magic has different things set his eyes upon. Castle Age is the name of the game now for him, piling up the resources off the back of the 10 eco lead that he has.
Of course, Magic, he'd go for wheelbarrows, so if these raids come in again, he can always pull away quick enough, right? So overall, he feels pretty good about the state of the game. And yet, despite the fact that he's maybe thinking about Castle Age, he definitely has the edge getting there quicker than ZertoN if he wants to. He doesn't go discount on the Lombos, right? He doesn't kind of nickel and dime it. He's matching what ZertoN's putting out, and in fact, exceeding it.
Yeah, and once he reaches Castle Age, it's a whole new level of gameplay. Because obviously you're gonna have the power spike of veteran longbows, but it's gonna come down to men-at-arms, knights possibly. And that's not something that ZertoN will be able to catch up to, because what is his biggest weakness when it comes to economy right now? Food. What do you need for Castle Age? Food.
And also, you know, you're slowing yourself down when you have to go get all this additional wood and gold to keep competing on the Eastern Lake. And folks, that isn't a transpo ship. Those are 3 galleys that he's invested in again. So eventually he should be able to win the fight, but I'm more worried about the land fight right now. Flash coming in, outpost is going up, and ZertoN doesn't realize it yet. However, he's hesitant due to the numbers, so actually works out to his benefit to back away. If he re-engages, he's going to lose a lot of troops though.
Yeah, but it also means he can't really re-engage. Best thing that he can hope for is secure the right-hand side pawn, but do keep in mind, even if ZertoN wins this battle, it's not like he has a single functional fishing ship out here, so essentially the ground or the resources he gains with that is minimal right now. It's going to take some time until it really comes into play.
But one edge ZertoN has in the current fights is he went for a blacksmith. He's got the upgrades. That's why those galleys were cleaning up so quickly. Something that Magic hasn't stopped off for. It is going to hurt him in the interim, but long term he's going to be good for it because he doesn't want to be going for more range units, right? With the castle tech up now underway, intent is going to be to move towards knights.
Yeah, but look at what ZertoN is up to. He's making a hard switch into Horsemen. The concern is that it's going to take so much time to build this up, and with only 200 food per minute as your food economy, I mean, that feels like a distant dream for him. I'm not even going to call this a Horseman switch, more like just adding a couple of Horsemen, because it's not like he's going to be able to afford much.
Yeah, it almost feels like you want to call it a dog switch. I mean, there's no dogs, but it's a dog-level player right now. I mean, he's not going to be able to get mass. He's also not really going to be able to get fishing online, because once his tech up completes, he can't build fishing on the Eastern Lake because of the Hulk factor, right? Or demo ships, anything that comes out, really. So this is going to get quite perplexing now. The tech up now complete. ZertoN might just be forced to let go of the Horseman ambition and fall back to a more kind of condensed spear format.
And now ZertoN even has to be the aggressor. He can't just sit back and wait, because not only does IamMagic have control over the left-hand side pond, not only will he have a Hawk out there to take the right-hand side pond with, he also has a second town center now with the King's Palace. So ZertoN has to make something happen over here. The problem is that he simply doesn't have the tools to do so with.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like, how do you make something happen here? In fact, if Magic just builds a boom ship now, the longbows can finish off these galleys. For a moment, though, he's going to choose to finish off the land army. ZertoN, I don't think that line formation is getting you out as quickly as you think here. Also, the upgrade for these longbows is coming through soon, so the best thing ZertoN can do is trade before it gets even worse. Horsemen are going to now arrive. That's going to force the back step. Knights also coming out, though, and all of a sudden, ZertoN may have overextended himself. Initial trades are good, but the follow-up is going to be grim.
And do keep in mind, those longbows are very slow, so the knights can easily catch them and just massacre them as they retreat. Looks like Magic instead is just gonna ignore those longbows, though head north and go for the raids with the knights. That could also pay off really well, because if you look at ZertoN's composition right now, there is nothing left back at home to defend with.
Nah, no one will be able to defend against this dismounted knight. He even brought a pet wolf. This sounds like some sort of anime story right now. Village is at least going to be pushed off the gold, and you can see ZertoN is going to park himself here. It's not the worst of ideas, actually. Paling's down, and you say, no gold for you, because Magic needs that gold. He's only up to 4 knights.
Yeah, but he kind of felt like he just thought the knights will still be there to defend. Little does he know that they're heading towards his base, and this is insane damage potential for Magic.
Especially if he goes south. A reminder, ZertoN does not have wheelbarrow. He only just started researching it. These guys are stuck in no man's land. In fact, they're going to be stuck in the land of the dead if they're not careful. They're going to retreat to the pond, a nice maneuver, because now you can bring the guys across to defend. But Magic isn't falling for that. He's going to head straight into the base. There's plenty of people to exploit on this wood line and on the spread out farms that you've now set up.
Yeah, and this is something that's telling Magic, okay, you have issues with the food. When you see that many farms on a map that has plenty of food available, the fish, the hunt, dare I say even the berries, having that many farms tells IamMagic that weakness in ZertoN's base and his entire lineup in this game really is the food. And this is something that he can strike at. In fact, he might even spot the age up here with the knights, even more valuable.
He's going to sniff it out to the villager running away, but he can't go in just yet. He's worried. This isn't enough knights to stop it indefinitely. So ZertoN's tech up should be successful here. Good choice to pull back the entire army, but Magic does have a second wave he can move forward with now. More knights and more archers.
Yeah. Castle is going to be there for ZertoN, but that is going to be from a position of disadvantage. He's down by 20 eco, and his opponent is also securing most of the relics out there. And look at that. 3rd TC coming up for Magic to secure the middle ground. Do keep in mind, not only will this secure the berries for him, there is a bigger aspect of that. The network of castles aura extended to the middle.
It's essentially a fortified outpost, is the way to look at this. It's an expensive outpost, yes, but it's worth it, especially with all the berries you mentioned. Another cool detail, I think he's going to keep gathering stone. We might see a keep there, because remember, he hasn't got a keep to get network of citadels yet, which would double the attack speed aura that he's getting.
Yeah, eventually he's going to get a keep up there. So that town center, it's going to secure the ground for him, set him up for a future better fortification, that being the keep. And also secure a bunch of berries, which means that he himself doesn't have to go for the farms. Sure thing, the farms will have a better getter rate, but it's an investment to make, and it's an investment that IamMagic doesn't want to make right now.
It delays your timings. He just wants to get as many knights as possible. You know, when you side invest in the relics as well, the farms just set you back further. Between berries and fishing, you should be actually pretty content in this game. And with such a big eco lead as well, it doesn't matter the gathering rates are worse. You can see he's now 20 eco units ahead of ZertoN. And also now ZertoN trying to go into knights, but he's doing so from behind. And he doesn't have an economy that allows him to get knights out quicker than Magic.
Yeah, and it's a mirror matchup, right? You're trying to build yourself an advantage, and once you have that, it's difficult for the opponent to recover. That's exactly what ZertoN is experiencing right now. You're trying to go for the identical units, but you're doing so while being down by 20 eco.
And nice little thing from Magic, he's finally getting the undermesh. This is so important up against the English due to the extra armor. Things that are also important up against the English when they get to this stage is vision. Vision that Magic doesn't have on his gold vein. Knights are now raiding in there. Uh-oh.
Oh, that's great value.
To run back. That's a lot of villagers on the south side that Magic has to retreat.
Yeah, we're not watching that right now, but they are running in need.
Important. We need to know which knight is more knightly.
It's only Horsemen, though. Not a single villager getting picked off.
But the idle time. The idle time is very important there. He at least has reserve golds, and I think Magic's going to reassess this. He'll probably come back out into the area and try to wall it off, and then go back for the gold.
Yeah, it is annoying for Magic. Could have been worse, though.
Tough fight at home here. He hasn't upgraded his longbows yet.
Yep. I wonder if he even wants to. He's facing a lot of knights, and at this point, the only reason why Magic went for longbow upgrades is because he needed that power spike when he reached Castle Age. But for ZertoN, seeing the amount of knights coming out from IamMagic, he might be hesitant to upgrade his longbows.
Wait, what? I'm kind of surprised the Horseman didn't just kill the monk there. I mean, that was not the best way to keep him alive, running away from the people trying to save you. This attack speed aura is helping ZertoN stabilize a bit, but if he just had the upgrade for the longbows as well, he might even snipe one or two of these knights. So far, though, Magic does maintain mid-map control. Hasn't continued to gather stone, though. Weirdly enough, he stopped at 247. Hasn't gone for the additional to get a keep yet.
Yeah, indeed. He probably was just busy being distracted by the gold mines. But now, look at his eco. He's up to 95. We are reaching that threshold where he can really just focus all his attention to pumping out army, because he's gonna get very close to being fully boomed. Also has a decent farming eco setup as well. So farm transition, while not fully complete, it is good enough for him to just focus entirely on army now.
Here's a thought for you. Does ZertoN even know? Wait, like, how would he know? Because he doesn't have vision in that area, right? Yeah. I don't think he even knows about this berry TC. Like, who would do this as the English?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he knows about that. He never scouted it. He never pushed against that hill. He knows about the King's Palace, obviously. He knows about the fish, but he has no idea about the third town center in the middle.
Now Knight Raids coming in. Are going to be counted out. Of course, the brilliant thing is Magic, even if he brings the same number of knights, he'll win due to that attack speed aura. ZertoN is just trying to draw some attention elsewhere. He thinks it's the beneficial thing to do, but he just doesn't realize how behind he is economically. And these Knight Raids, the numbers are getting concerned. And sure, ZertoN's trying to remain competitive. It's only an 8-knight lead for Magic, but that is going to continue to bump up further in the coming minutes.
Yeah, and for Magic right now, he doesn't have to finish this game here. He is going to control the majority of the relics, so he's more than happy to play a long game, especially because his eco lead is pretty massive. In fact, he's getting closer and closer to being fully boomed, and from that point on, he is just going to get to PopCap with the army, and once he's there, he's going to work his way towards Imperial. He's going to have the technology power spike, and that's going to be difficult for ZertoN to hold off.
Good exchange at least coming out from ZertoN there, cleaning up some knights. He needs every little bit he can get right now. He's also now playing into monks. Little does he know, there's really no relics left to get. I hope this is for NHS purposes more than anything else. Otherwise, it's just a wasted investment.
Oh yeah, there's one more relic, but that's on the side of IamMagic, and Magic is likely gonna get that too. There's a monk sneaking past on the right flank, by the way. There's a little red dot on the minimap. That's a monk sneaking past the knights with the relic. Look at that. Knights not having vision. They will never find him.
Speaking of knights, attack speed is going to be in place here for Magic. ZertoN has to peel back straight away. Whoops daisy. It could have been much worse if he just waited 1 or 2 extra seconds. Then Magic would have eviscerated him there. So good reactions. As you said, that relic is still going to make its way through, and the keep drop's coming in. Because he wants to be back on that pond. He wants to make sure that ZertoN has nothing to work with. And he also wants to get that network of Citadels buff finally. Walls.
Oh,
just in time. Just in time.
That castle is not only there to potentially once again contest that bond, it's also because you don't really want those knights from ZertoN to keep running into your eco, so it's gonna be a good staging ground to make sure that you can't just be flanked by the knights of ZertoN.
Speaking of knights running ecos, that has been put to a stop for now. Magic doesn't have any easy way in. However, the lead is escalating, and the concern here is if you're still just doing knights and lombos, eventually Magic will just have enough knights to take a straight up fight. And he's also now layering in crossbows, which means your own knights, even with attack speed buff, aren't going to last long enough to do anything with it.
It gets worse than that. Look at the resources. IamMagic is going to go Imperial. He's going to do so with the Wingguard Palace. And I think ZertoN is just now realizing what's going on in the middle. He's going to try to push up hills here.
Really, he's going to spot it out. Villagers going to try to garrison to their safety. Lombos are backstepping. Knights need to rally towards this location. In fact, they could go right after ZertoN's Lombos for free if they wanted to. Remember, the attack speed aura is in favor of Magic here. It's not a fight ZertoN ultimately wants to have to take, but he realizes he's being pushed around right now. Too much map control has been given over. And now that Magic retreats like this, I think ZertoN knows. A tech up is coming, but also a second wave of Knights. Numbers all of a sudden against him. ZertoN is going to have to run for the high hills. The Lombos, however, do not have the ability to retreat fast. Someone is going to be sacrificed.
Yeah, aura in there for both players. Now ZertoN retreats. He's gonna have the attack aura, but he doesn't have the armor-piercing power of the crossbows. Neither does he have the upgrades on his longbows, but his knight numbers not looking spectacular, and he's gonna have no tools to push this hill with.
He baited him in again. The attack speed is there on both sides here. Detrimental to ZertoN's ability to stay in the fight. Knights are about to get wiped fast. Look at that count just completing so fast. Wraparound comes in, Lombo's going to be pushed back, and after that, your villager lines are going to be exposed. This moment here could just be a push through for Magic to win.
Indeed, the crossbow is doing so much work from the back line, and it's difficult for ZertoN to focus them down in that chaotic battle, so much so that he taps out. IamMagic, 3-1 lead, convincing victory, another mirror once again, off the back of that massive eco that he was able to establish in the mid-game.
Brilliant plays by Magic to close this one out in the end. Great read in that early game. Yes, he had to get baited into Lombos, but he made sure he optimized and punished ZertoN for playing a land-only eco. Brilliant thing at the start of that game to come back to is the scouts. The secondary scout to me was the MVP play that now puts Magic on match point. ZertoN, nothing but perfection will keep your dreams alive. Magic, one game away from achieving his dream and making it to the largest LAN in Age of Empires history.
Yeah, you feel like he's now playing very confident. Keep in mind that game number 1 was won by ZertoN, if I'm not mistaken. So ZertoN started out strong, but then Magic, now he's on a roll. Maybe it was a bit of a sloppy or slow start for him today, but now he's playing with absolute confidence and he's winning these mirrors. Convincing game number 4 over here for him. He's one game away from getting a ticket to Heidelberg. Long time overdue possibly for him. He was definitely considered as one of the candidates to qualify for a LAN. And this time around, he's gonna have to possibly do so in another mirror. In we go with the HRE.
Well, this was our concern, right? We get back into this HRE as well. I mean, this is... I think ZertoN could do a decent HRE. I think his HRE is pretty decent from what I remember. But this is a matchup as old as time itself, which actually by time is technically about a year old because Age of Empires 4 is a year old. This is the El Clasico, right? HRE on Hill and Dale, a map where you can just bulk up into castle fast, rush out for the relics, and then hide on your high ground. Curious to see how this one's going to play out because, you know, one thing I usually give an edge to ZertoN for is he likes his late game, but we've seen Magic isn't afraid to get into those late game battles either.